Hi, I'm Beth and welcome to my basement yoga room. This video is designed as a morning yoga routine. It's actually the first in a series that I'm doing, a series of 3 videos that will be designed for morning, noon, and night. So I'm designing them that way so that you could put the 3 videos together if you'd like for a longer practice. And yet each is going to be a standalone video designed for that time of day, but really appropriate for any time. For example, this morning routine is appropriate anytime that you want a gentle, all floor, kind of warm up, stretchy practice. So we are going to start by coming down to lying on our backs. And I have just a mat underneath me today. If you would like a blanket or anything else, go ahead and add those props. As you come down, place your feet flat on the floor, knees up, and allow your knees to gently rest toward each other if that's comfortable for you. So your legs make a sort of triangle shape. This is called constructive rest. Your arms can go out to the side or whatever feels comfortable. If any part of this doesn't feel right to you, you're welcome to lie in any position. We are going to take a few moments to tune in. I'm looking toward you, but I encourage you to rest back on your head. Allow your eyes to close if that feels comfortable and safe for you. And I'll offer you a little mindfulness strategy that can help you to start to tune in and focus at the start of your yoga practice or really at any time of day. It's called AGE. AGE is an acronym and it stands for Arrive, Gather, Expand. And I'll take these first few moments to lead you through that. So as you're here, arrive in your space on your mat, your floor, your rugs, the grass, wherever you are today. Narrow your focus from the whole outside world that you were in just before this to coming into the here and now of where you are, maybe feeling your back body being supported, your hands rest on the floor, your body. This is arriving into the present moment. And then G, gather. We gather the attention even more by starting to focus on a breath awareness. So not a change of the breath or having to do anything fancy with the breath. Simply, oh, there's my breath. You can even put a hand wherever you feel it, maybe near the abdomen, the diaphragm, perhaps over your heart to feel the air in your chest. So awareness that you're breathing. And it's also a mindful place to rest your attention. The breath is with you throughout this whole practice. Anytime your attention wanders, you can bring it right back to the breath. And then keeping that awareness of breath and of body, the E in age, expand. We allow our attention to then incorporate everything that is around us. Notice that you're in a room, you're on a mat, you hear my voice, and yet still keep that self-focus. As we conclude this little age exercise, take one more mindful breath in, mindful breath out. And then on your next breath, draw your knees in toward your body. Now these can be anywhere. Your knees can be closer together. They can be wider apart. You can use your hands on your knees, on your thighs, or keep your hands down by your side. Whatever you choose to do, try to let the feeling in your body dictate this. So you can see I'm rocking a little bit. Less concerned for what it looks like or the aesthetic aspects of the practice, but rather the functional aspects, what it feels like in your body. And then we'll move this to a little wave breathing, so adding in our breath with a movement. I like to do this right with my hands on the tops of my knees. If that's not comfortable for you, don't have to add the arms. As you exhale, draw the knees in a little closer to your body so you're contracting a little bit. And as you inhale, you can use your hands to help if you're using your hands. Push the knees further away. So you're moving your body with breath. Inhaling, expanding, moving the knees a little away, expanding the air through your torso. Exhale, drawing in. This does not need to be a big movement. In fact, it can be really small and subtle. You might start to feel a little bit of a rocking along your pelvis, so that as you breathe in and move away, your low back lifts a little more from the floor. And as you exhale and move the knees in, your low back presses more closely in. We're going to look at that a little bit more with the feet down in just a moment. So a few more breaths this way. This is a real gentle warm up for the hips, maybe a little bit into your spine. It's nice to move the spine around in all directions that it goes, especially in the morning. All right, after your next breath, you can gently allow your feet to settle back down toward the floor. The width of your feet is whatever is comfortable for you. And we're going to take that same breathing, this time allowing our pelvis to tuck down and to tuck up. So on an inhale, I'm going to rise my low back, arching my low back a little bit as I push the bottom of my pelvis into the floor. And then on an exhale, I'm going to tuck my hips under, curling my low back to the floor as I lift. Maybe the bottom of my hips come off the floor just a little bit. So inhale, arch the back, creating a little more space. And then exhale, press the lower back into the ground. This is a little pelvic rock motion. You can do whatever you'd like with your arms. And after doing this a few more times, we're going to add a little bit of a hip lift to this, a little bit of a mini bridge flow. So exhale, tip, create that space, or inhale. You can breathe opposite if that works better for you. And then on your next breath, push your low back into the ground, push your feet into the ground, float your hips up just a little bit. Exhale, release. And this time I'm going to lift my arms overhead. So inhale, I'll stretch my arms over. Exhale and release. I'm not going to go that high because I felt my back of my hamstrings start to cramp. They're not really warmed up yet. So inhale, a little press. Exhale and release. Maybe one more time. Inhale, a little press. Exhale and release. And anytime you need a break, take a break. If you feels good to windshield wiper your legs side to side a few times, take that action. We'll do a little bit more warm up for the hips and also the hamstrings, especially after mine were cramping up a little bit. So we're going to take one ankle. I'll take the leg that's further away from you, cross the ankle over the opposite knee. You're forming a figure 4 shape with your legs. This is also called reclined pigeon pose. So often when we're doing reclined pigeon, we take the bottom foot up and we thread our hands in and lift. Really in the practice, I'd like to stay really grounded here on the ground and maybe focus just on moving my knee in and back, in and away. And I can feel this really concentrated in my hip joint, warming that up nice in the morning, or when we haven't been doing a lot of movement. You can also take the leg more in a sawing action, so taking it across your body and away. That's a different movement of the hip joint. Look at me for ideas, but then see how it feels in your body. And if moving in some way that is slightly different from what I'm doing or vastly different from what I'm doing feels better for you, that's totally okay. All right, and then we're going to take the same leg, knee bent, so draw just the one knee in toward the chest. And again, you can hold it or not, complete option for you. We're going to bend, straighten it a little bit. It does not have to come all the way straight. You may feel as you bend, you get that stretch more moving to the back of the hamstring. That's what we're looking for. So whatever you need to do, your leg might be lower, can bend straight here. As you do this, you might have the leg a little bit more open, move it out to the side. That changes that stretch a little bit more to the inner thigh area, the adductors. So it's fine to search for where you need the stretch. And then if you like, you can hold stretching long. Again, you don't have to straighten the knee all the way. Think about pushing away with the heel. And even if your knee's not straight, if you push with the heel, bring your toes back toward your face, that likely will give you a little bit more degree of stretch here. Maybe hold for another breath or two. And then as you're ready, take that leg down and we will switch to the other side. So second ankle crosses over. Remember that we're keeping the foot grounded at the start of our practice. It feels a little bit more gentle for a morning or AM practice. The other option is to put the bottom foot on something, a cushion, a block, or a pillow. Then you deepen the stretch a little bit on the outer hip if that's what you'd like, and yet you can do it really passively without having to hold on. Take some movement, experimenting with moving the knee in and out, or sliding the leg across and out. Seeing what you need, remembering that each side will be different. I heard this saying that the sides of our bodies we think of them as twins, but they're not. My own spin on that is we think of them as identical twins, but they're more like fraternal twins. They share a lot of the same characteristics, but they're not completely symmetrical. There are some differences there. And then when you've gotten a nice little warm up in your hip joint, we'll move to the hamstring by drawing that knee in toward the body, any amount, and some bend and straighten. Oh, this was my leg that had cramped a little bit, so this bend and straighten feels nice for me. And it may not be morning wherever you are. It is for me. I have done no exercise or workout before this, so I can feel it. Maybe you change the direction of the leg, adduct a little bit more, move it away from the body. Perhaps you go a little lower. And if you'd like, take a bit of a hold in the position, moving toward straight, pointing the toes back toward you, feeling as if you're pushing the heel away from your body, holding on or not. And then release that leg. We've started to move the spine in different directions. Well, now we'll do a twist. Twist can feel nice in the morning after lying in bed all night. So for this twist, we'll start on with the feet on the floor. Take your hips and shift them a little bit away from me. So just press into your feet, slide your hips a little bit away. Then bring your knees in toward your body and take them in the direction toward me, toward your screen. So that shifting of the hips away creates a little bit more space to twist. And in fact, sometimes after I move, I like to shift my hips back even a little bit more. Now I like my legs stacked. You can twist in all kinds of ways. If legs stacked doesn't feel good, sometimes having a pillow in between your knees can feel better. And you can just take a pillow from your bed to do that, or a blanket. You can have the legs more staggered if you wish. You can again do anything you like with your arms. See how it feels to take the arm away from the direction of the legs, reach it back, and see if you can send that shoulder a little bit back toward the floor. Now that might lift your knees away from the floor, and that's totally okay. It can be pretty challenging, especially early,
to keep both the knees down toward the floor and the shoulder down toward the floor. But that movement of stretching from knees to opposite shoulder is part of what gives us the spinal twist. Arms can be in a T, a cactus shape. You can rest the one hand on your legs. Keep breathing. If you remember in the beginning when we did that age, I talked about the gathering the attention to your breath. We want to do that throughout the practice. And if our mind has wandered away, the breath is still there. You can simply gather the attention back. Oh yeah, there the breath is. I'm breathing as I'm in this pose. Feeling the effects of wherever you feel it on your body, probably somewhere along this side. You can change the direction of your chin or your head. I'm looking toward you out of convenience. You can shift your head in the opposite direction of your legs. You can look straight up. You want to place the head in a position that feels comfortable and good for your neck. So if it feels a good stretch to look in the opposite direction, you can do that. If it doesn't, don't. All right, let's take one more breath in this little bit of a twist. And then as we come out, come slowly. You might find it helpful to lift one leg, then the other leg. Coming back to your back, placing the feet down the floor, recentering your hips first. So you might have to scooch around a little bit and feel that you're centered. And then sliding or shifting your hips a little bit toward the screen and taking your knees, lifting them up and letting them go to the opposite side away from the screen. Now, where your knees land is also an option too. So your knees can be higher up toward your chest. That's likely going to give you a little bit more stretch in the upper back area, around the shoulders, higher in your thoracic spine. You can have your knees down lower, and then you might feel more of the spinal twist lower on your back, your lower thoracic, maybe even going down into your lumbar spine area. So all poses have these bits of adjustment. Usually it's adjusting your arms and your legs are the first thing you can move around to feel the changes. You can also adjust your torso. So I could untwist a little bit in my torso. I can turn my torso more to adjust this twist more. I can adjust the position of my head like we talked about earlier. In a functional practice, a feel practice, you customize the poses to make them work best for you. Remember that we're breathing. Feeling the breath is a way that we can relax into the postures a little bit more. That we can be in the moment, mindful of the moment a little bit more. Let's take about 2 more breaths on this side. See if you can feel those complete breaths as we did at the start of the practice. And then as we did with the first side, you might lift one leg and then the other. You can scooch a little bit to get yourself even back on the mat. So we've done a lot of bent knee things. Now let's take the legs out long. Stretch the legs out long, and you might stretch the arms in opposition out long over the head. We often call this a morning stretch, right? This is just kind of a natural stretch that many of us do in the morning, simply naturally. And see how it feels to take one heel and press that heel and the arm on the same side away from each other. You might feel that stretch all down the back of your leg as you do that, up into your armpit, your arm. And then second side, push the heel of your foot away, reach the arm on the same side away. Breathe as you're doing this. We hold the pose, but we never want to hold the breath. And then again, push both feet. Maybe you point and flex the feet a little bit, getting some movement into the ankles. Reach the fingers. You can wiggle the fingers, open the fingers, close. And then we'll stay in this long position. I'm going to reach my leg that's closer to you out toward that side so it's coming off the mat. And then I'll slide the other leg over to join it. And then I'm going to start to bend with my upper body in that same direction without lifting my shoulder. So my shoulders stay, can scooch my shoulders stay down. So my back stays relatively toward the floor without lifting. There's going to be a little lift on the side that's away, a little more. And now that I'm in this position, which is a lying crescent, or the name I prefer, banana asana, because it's such a cool name. Now we're in this banana shape or a crescent moon shape. We can play around and really target the stretch a little better for our body. So the area that we're stretching, and hopefully you feel something in this area, is along the opposite side of the body than the side that we're bending. So this is my right side, and I definitely feel it along my right waist. You can adjust how much you feel it. If you want to feel it more on different parts, more down the legs. So if you'd like to feel it more down the legs, you take your leg on that side and cross it over. Now this depends also on your ankle flexibility and other things about whether this is comfortable. If you did that and that's not for me, that's fine. Take the legs down. You might find that without crossing, you can slide them a little bit more, and that will help the stretch travel down further into your body. With the arms, you can take the arms and put them a little bit behind your head. You can keep them bent. You can take your arm on the side that's bending, gently clasp your other arm, and use that for a little bit of a pull, a little bit of a bend. And the other thing you could do is, if you're having trouble keeping your legs in position, you could loop a long strap, a long belt, a scarf, a dog leash to your feet, hold your feet with this hand, and then you've got like a little bit of a bow where you can adjust the pose that way. In fact, you can, if your strap is long enough, you can hold it with the hand over your head and then use this hand as a little bit of adjustment. So I'm trying to keep these practices no props, but you always have the option of props. And in fact, I highly encourage you to use props if you know that props are something that help your practice. Sometimes props make a certain pose easier, let's say easier or more accessible. Other times they help us intensify the pose and intensify the amount of stretch that we get. So we've likely been on this side a few minutes. This is a nice pose to hold for a longer amount of time if you'd like. We'll start sliding back through towards center. Take a moment and center, breathe here for a breath or two, maybe do another long stretch. And then we'll start to slide in the other direction. So I'm going to take the foot that's further from the screen, slide that away. It's my right foot. I'm going to slide the left to join it. So already I'm starting to feel the stretch in the outer left side of my hip, my IT band. I'm going to slide my right shoulder down in the direction of my feet. My upper body is not really going far, and that's okay. If I want to intensify this stretch, I can move my arm closer to my ear. I can pull a little bit more. But I'm really good with the stretch being mainly in my hip flexor area. I'm going to just stay with it there. I'll see how it feels on this side to cross the foot over. And what I'm noticing is that that actually feels more accessible to me on this side than it did on the first side. On the first side, for whatever reason, I think my right side being my dominant side is a little tighter. It didn't feel comfortable. On this side, it does. So I'll stick with it here. Just like our bodies are not exactly the same on each side, we don't have to do the exact same pose. We might feel that we need to target areas of stretch, areas of sensation, or just the differences from side to side by using slightly different versions of the poses. That is completely okay. So we'll stay a little bit longer here since we held a little bit on the other side while I was talking and showing variations. If at any time you feel your sensation of stretch change as you're holding the pose, that might be a sign that you need to change the pose. So it can go in two different ways. You can be lying here for a bit and feel that you're losing the stretch. Your body is starting to acclimatize to being in this position. So maybe if you didn't have your foot up, you cross your foot up. Maybe you see if you have a little room to walk your feet further over and then cross your foot. So you might find that as you're into the stretch a little bit, your body adjusts, adapts, and you can allow a little bit more sensation. The opposite can definitely happen too. You might find a sensation that was tolerable at the beginning that felt like, oh yeah, this is a good stretch. It's pretty intense, but I can do it. As the pose goes on, it becomes much too intense. It's uncomfortable, maybe even veering off into kind of a sharp or stinging sensation, which we never want. So if that's the case, then you do what you need to do to adapt the stretch to a more comfortable and doable level. So that can be backing off a little bit, moving your feet back in a little bit. You can still cross the legs, but maybe in a different position. You feel like, okay, there's my good stretch. That's what we're looking for, that good kind of general diffuse stretchy feeling that might be a little bit uncomfortable at times, but certainly not to the point of anything painful. All right, we'll come out of this stretch. Maybe one more big overhead stretch. And we are going to end this practice in child's pose. So we're going to take the knees to the side and come up to our knees. But before we do that, I want to show you a variation that we've already done, and that's just child's pose on the back. So you can draw your knees in, and if you have been to yoga class, you'll know that in child's pose, often you'll be instructed to take the toes together, knees apart. This is your child pose shape. So if child's pose on your knees doesn't feel comfortable in your body, you have the option of doing it on your back anytime, whether it's with me or whether you're in class. You can always do it this way. You can hold your arms around. You can place your arms overhead as they'd be more in an extended child's pose. You can have your knees together also if that feels good for you. So any of those options are fine. Feel free to practice face up child's pose. I'm going to roll my knees toward you. Start to come up to seated. I'm going to come around to seated on my heels. I'm going to come into a child's pose from here. Now, again, I said that often you have the instruction to take your toes together and knees apart. This is a great option if it works for you. It creates a little more space for the body to move into, and that's really nice if we have more mass in the front part of our body for any reason. But if you like it with knees closer together, you can practice that way. I'm going to take my knees a little bit apart. I like to go into the slow, walking my hands forward, starting to hinge from the hips as I spill my body forward. And again, in the morning, I like to go into a version that's maybe not my maximal child's pose, crossing my arms, resting my forehead. You can use a block here. You can kind of stack your fist and rest your forehead that way. And then you also have the option of doing a child's pose with your hips more upright than mine are. And maybe even taking that more into a puppy pose, which is arms extended, head coming between. So I encourage you to find some version of child's pose, remembering that the face up option is acceptable, good, justifiable option if that works for your body, as well as any of the other options, whether it's puppy or hips up, knees together, knees apart. Rest for a few moments here. If you'd like to go on to the afternoon practice, I will link to that up here as soon as I have it ready. If this is where you're ending today, please rest and have a great day. Thanks for joining me.